What you guys, got another video here for you on how to optimize Windows 11. Now you can use these methods to turn off a lot of features that you might not use inside Windows 11 that use up precious resources. So what we're going to do is take a look at how to disable some of these the safe way, because if you make changes this way, you can always turn them back on. If you use software, it's always going to end up messing up your system, and then you end up with major issues. But before we continue, let's have a quick word from today's sponsor. Looking for cheap Windows 10 Pro keys? Head over to CD Key Sales. Use the links in the video description and then hit the buy now button. Use my promo code capital B, capital R09. Apply that and submit your order. Head over to the activation window on Windows 10. Change product key. Submit your product key that you just purchased. Click on activate and this will activate your version of Windows 10 Pro. Okay, so let's get started. Let's hit the start button and then we're going to go to settings. Down here we have our categories, and when we click on these, it gives us access to these features in those categories here. So let's start off with system at the top. Go into display here. Just have a look here and you can see HDR. If you do have HDR on your system, you can literally have this on, but mine's not supported, so that's off. Down here we've got our night vision. It will go orange if you turn that on to protect your eye. It blocks all the blue light. And also down here we have our advanced display. Inside here, just make sure that you're getting the highest refresh rate for your monitor. If you've got 144 Hertz monitor, you want to make sure you're using the maximum refresh rate in Hertz here, you can see here, rather than the lower one. It's much more smoother. Now coming back, we have a game section for graphics here, so we can go to graphics and you can basically add in applications and games. So let's go to the browse area here. I'm going to go to my game section here, and I've got Red Dead Redemption 2 here. Let's go in here and select the executable file for this. Click add, and you'll see it down here, added here. So now we can go into here and add options, let Windows decide, or you can power saving, or you can do high performance for this particular game here. And that's how you set those up. Same thing for this Skyrim. You can do the same thing. If you want to change these, you can do. Let's go back. I'm going to skip sound. We're going to move on to notifications. In the notifications area here, we have two sections here, notifications and focused assist. Starting on the notifications, you've got your notifications here. You can toggle this off if you wish, if you don't want to be notified for apps and other senders. But if you do have notifications for certain things like important emails, then you can set these up. So for instance, let me just quickly do this one first and turn this off. Okay, so we can toggle off this if we wish, or you can come down here and toggle off only certain stuff that you're not interested at getting the notifications for. So down here you can see offer suggestions on how I can set up my device. I don't need those, and I don't need to get tips and suggestions when I use my PC here. So I'm going to turn those off. Going down to focused assist. Now you'll see this is set to off. That doesn't mean focus assist is off. It means it's going to get all notifications from your apps and contacts. I normally have this set to priority only, and you can have alarms only if you wish, if you want to hide all notifications except from alarms. Now, the way this works basically is you can set up a customized priority list, and you can set this up for, say, for instance, a person or an application. Maybe you've got a contact that emails you regularly and you want to be notified from that person when they do send you an email. And you can put them in there, and you can do it during these times as well only. So for instance, you can do it daily, weekly, and so on, and set this up priority only. You can see here. So if you don't want to be disturbed, then obviously you'd make changes to this area. Now, what I will say is down here, you can see here, there's some areas down here. So if you want to leave this on, you can do. If you're not using it and you want to turn these off, you can do as well. And you can see here when I'm playing a game, you can leave that on because you don't want to be notified at all when you're playing a game. And then turn this one off as well, like so. Let's go back. Go back again. And then we're going to go down, leave the power and storage sense. Let's have a look here. Now, if you don't use storage sense and you want to sort of turn off any sort of services that are running, that are constantly running, say for instance you're playing games and stuff and this is starting to do its thing in the background, then you might want to turn storage sense off if you don't use it. You might want to do this manually, clean your system, temporary files and documents, all that sort of stuff regularly yourself. If you do that, you can just turn this off. If you like storage sense doing all this stuff in the background for you, then by all means leave it on. Moving down to nearby sharing, this is off for me, but if you are using this, you can do set this up to yourself. And I also multitasking, you can see here, snap windows and so on. It's entirely up to you. Shake, I've turned this stuff off. And again, we'll go down to project to this PC. I've always got this off, recommended. And we'll move down to remote desktop. I've got this off also. And we can move down to clipboard, the clipboard area. Now, sometimes people find this clipboard history useful because it means that it stores so many clipboard history. If you don't want to do that, then by all means, you can toggle this off. And again, sync across your devices. If you don't use this type of feature, you can turn these off as well. But if you do use them, obviously then leave them on. Some people are going to find it useful. Some people are going to not find it useful. So whatever is useful for you, then turn it on and leave it off, or leave it off. It's up to you. Okay, so let's move on down to the About page under System. Let's go here and we're going to go to System Protection. Inside the System Protection, you can see, start from the Remote tab right at the right-hand side. I've got all of the remote assistance turned off. System protection is all turned off. I don't use system restore. Very rarely that fixes PCs nowadays. If it's malware, it's going to get inside here anyway. On the advanced tab, let me just quickly show you here. If you are on system protection and you want to turn this off, you can disable it right here and then delete all the system restore points. Moving on to the advanced area, we've got performance and startup and recovery and user profiles. We'll go performance first. Inside here, you'll have your visual effects. This is what Windows looks like. This is all your fade and animations and stuff like that. You won't be having an old system on Windows 11 because it's not going to allow you to run any old system on here. So tweaking this is not going to do you much good anyway. But if you do want to turn those features off on, say, Windows 10, some people like to turn this off for less animations to make their PC run a bit smoother. You can turn these off. How do you go about doing that? Well, you can either have best performance or you can do a custom and then just remove the ticks from, say, for instance, animate, animations, fade, and all these sort of things here. And you can see also here, let's see, these ones here, things like that. You can take these out. And this will remove it. Shadows under Windows and things like that. If you want to get rid of the shadows, you can do. But again, if you're on a bit of an older system, this used to do wonders many years ago. I'm going to cancel that. Go back in there. And we're going to go to the virtual memory settings on the next tab. People always talk about virtual memory. Leave this as Windows managed. You don't need to mess with this stuff. Paging file sizes and things like that. It's an old type of tweak, but again, it can cause you problems, especially when people keep saying that you don't need a paging file when you have 8 GB of RAM or more. Turning this off is just going to cause you problems. You're going to end up with blue screens and things like that when Windows needs to use the paging file. So I tend to leave this as is. I don't tend to set custom sizes anymore like I used to many years ago, and put in custom sizes here for how much memory is in the system. You can see a general currently allocated and recommended and so on. I just let Windows deal with this. Okay, so let's go back here to, let me just quickly go back one. Under the set startup and recovery, if you really want to turn this off, you can do. It's not going to do much, but you can turn this off to display the list of operating systems on dual boot. You would get 30 seconds to select which operating system you want. I tend to leave that as is. We're on the Windows 11 system here. You can see it still says Windows 10. One thing I will say, automatically restart, I turn that off, and that's because I want to be able to see the blue screen if you get a blue screen, and it will keep the blue screen up on the screen there. You can set the automatic memory dump, and also you can set it to a different complete memory dump or whatever ones you want. These are the dump files that give you information of what's made your PC crash, and this is how you can set this up here. Okay, so that is now done. I'll cancel this out here. I'm going to come out of this. And we'll go back. There we go. So we've done this first system bit. Bluetooth devices, again, if you're not using Bluetooth on your PC connecting anything, you can turn this off. If you do want to use Bluetooth, you can turn it on when you're using it. You can add a device. There's no point leaving this running if you're not using it. It's just another system resource that's getting used. Again, I've got here a bunch of stuff here. Your phone, if you're using your phone, I have this off. I don't use that particular feature. And again, we go down to cameras. If you do use a camera for streaming and stuff like that, camera privacy settings, you can turn this off if you don't use it. If you do use it, you can select which apps you want to get access to the camera if you're using a camera on that PC, especially if you're gaming, Xbox gaming bar and stuff like that. You may want to leave these on and get this set right. I'm not using a camera. And moving down to your mouse settings here, you can see there's very primitive looking mouse settings here. Additional mouse settings inside here. I tend to leave the double click speed around about here. Pointers I leave as is. Make sure I take the tick out of the enhanced pointer precision. This can cause problems. Some people like this on. I personally turn this off for gaming. I just get much more accuracy by having this off, and literally have it roughly about in the middle here. I don't use any sort of weird pointers and stuff like that, which you can use, and that just makes things worse and things can get broken. I tend to leave those well alone. So that is the mouse. So pen and Windows ink, I don't use any of this sort of stuff. Okay, let's take a quick look at apps area here. So these are your apps and features and your default apps, and you could just remove whatever apps you don't want to use here. For instance, if you have an app inside here that you're not using and you want to remove it, you can remove it from this section here. So for instance, if you don't use this, you can uninstall it. Paint 3D, sorry. And just remove it like so if you don't want to use them. Personally, they're only small, but if you want to remove all that stuff from your system, you can do. Default apps is there as well. This is your default apps. You can remove stuff. Offline maps. And then we've got optional features here. You can see steps recorder. You can uninstall all of this stuff if you want it. So if you don't want to use, Windows Fax and Scan, you can uninstall it here. Whatever you don't want to see here. Hello Face, Media Player, any of this stuff. If you don't want it, you can remove it. More Windows features, and you can remove stuff from the Windows feature area here. I would advise you to leave this alone a little bit. But basically, this is where you can get access to this area here. Let's go back and then go to, you can see apps for websites here. If you don't want to use any of these like maps and stuff like that, you can turn these off if you wanted to. Microsoft To Do, if you don't use any of that stuff. Again, you can go through here and turn this off depending on what you want to do here. So let's go Startup, and this is your startup area. So you can choose what you want to toggle off here. Go down to the privacy and security. This is the area that most people like to change first. And we'll start off with Windows security, which is to do with your antivirus program that is built into Windows, which is called Windows Defender, basically. So if you want to make changes here, some people get a bit paranoid about what is being sent back. So if you want to make changes, you can go to Manage Settings here. And basically inside here, this is where people start disabling stuff to stop stuff being sent back. So cloud delivered protection. And people are worried about automatic submission to Microsoft, and they're worried about what is being sent back. So people tend to turn this off. Same thing for automatic sample submission. They turn this off as well because they don't want stuff being sent back, and they can always submit it manually, but they never do. And that means that these antivirus programs will never ever learn to get better at keeping you protected. So turning these off can be a bit of a hindrance to the future of this program itself. Tamper protection is to stop malware and other yourself and other malware to try and turn the program off and things like that. This stops you from doing it. It's tamper protection basically. But some people think that this is to send data back as well, and they like to turn that off. I'm leaving these as is for this video because I think it's necessary to keep people safe. Moving on down to, let's go back here. Going on down to Find My Device. If you want to turn these off, you can. You have to be signed in into a Microsoft account first off, and I'm not on this machine. And this device can't be located because the location settings is turned off. So, and this does hinder the system a little bit, but if you don't want to have your location done, then you would turn this off like I've got here. Let's go back. And we'll go down to General. And inside General, I generally turn these off. These are all show me suggestive content in Settings app and so on, and advertisements and things like that. So I turn those off. And I tend to do those in group policy as well, but that's for another video. So let's go on to speech. And this is turned off. I tend to turn these off, and inking and all this sort of stuff. This is basically going to collect, you can see here, use my typing history and handwriting patterns to create a personal directory. I don't really particularly want that to happen, but you can click on here and clear out your personal directory just like so. So there's nothing to panic about, but it really does sort of worry people so much. So that's inking, typing, and your personalization. Diagnostic feedback. Now you can see this is off, and that's because it's on a local account. But if you're on the Insider program, you need to have this feature on. But I'm going to leave this off for this video, assuming that you are now in the future on a local account and you don't want to be connected to Microsoft in any sort of way. So having this off would be a preference for me. And also deleting your diagnostic data would be done like this. And you can see here, feedback frequency automatically recommended, and you can say never if you wanted to. Okay, and that's how you would just opt out of all of that stuff. So that's the diagnostic and feedback. Now again, as I said before, but careful, if you are on the Insider program and you make these changes, it will kick you out and you won't be able to be on the Insider program. So activity history, some people like to take this out and clear their activity history. But if you need this feature, then by all means leave these on. I don't know what everyone's preferences are when they're using their PC. These are just roughly what I would be doing on my PC. Again, cloud content search, you can leave these on. History, I'd leave those on. And we'll come down a little bit further. Searching windows, I'm going to leave that as is. Classic. And let's go down to your location here. So these are your app permissions here. Now I pretty much turn all of this stuff off, as you'll see here. This is all pretty much off. So when I come down, the annoying part is when you go back, you have to keep dragging it down. The only two you want to really concern about here is your camera and your microphone. Just make sure that your camera is on if you use a camera in gaming and stuff, and you use it on certain things. You can turn it off for certain stuff you don't use it on, but on certain games and stuff like that, you might need it on, like OBS and other bits like that. If you don't use a camera at all, you can turn it off. And moving down to your microphone, it's important that you leave this on as well, because if your camera needs your microphone, but if Cortana needs it and you don't need to have that on, you can turn it off. Feedback hub and all this sort of stuff, you can turn these off and just leave it on for the certain things you're using, whether it be Camtasia and other items like that, okay? If you don't use a microphone, then you can turn it off. And then we're going to go down here, and literally all of these I would go through and turn off. So I don't use any of this stuff. I'm not going to go through every one of these because I'll be here all day. But if you use a calendar, by all means, use your calendar. If you use the People program, you would toggle this on and use your mail and calendar. If you don't, then turn it off. I don't leave any of these on at all. Notifications, same thing. I don't want to be notified about anything. I just want to use my PC and get stuff done. So if you use contacts, by all means, leave that on. I turn it off. I've got Outlook, which I use, and I turn all the rest of this stuff off. So as you can see here, I'm not going to go right through here, but basically I would turn all of this stuff off. Radios, all that off, like so. Okay. So let's move back one, go back here. And what we'll do is we'll quickly go to Windows Update below here. Now, I generally leave Windows Update alone. I don't touch it. I only update when I need to. But because it's Windows 11, it's going to be getting a lot of updates lately, which are important to keeping it running nice and smoothly. And you're getting the best updates available for your experience for using it, because obviously it's a new operating system. And again, if you go into the advanced options here, you might see some options in here which you can turn off and turn on depending on how you have your set. So let me just go into the delivery here, and you can see this is allow downloads from other PCs. I tend to turn that off. And another thing is literally I don't have anything else on this system, but if you want that bare essentials like that, that's all you need to do. So let's go into the Windows Update. Now, you can pause updates for a week and so on here. You can see up to 5 weeks, depending on how you want to set yours up. You've got your update history. There's also update options here in advanced options, and you've got some other areas you can mess around with to suit your needs. I'm not going to cover this in this video. There is one delivery optimization here, devices on the local network. It will pull updates from those if you wanted to do that. If you don't, and it's using your resources, you can turn that off and it'll pull it down from Microsoft there. So let me just come back. Okay, let's go back here. We'll go back again. And that is the two of these done here. Gaming as well, we're moving up the bottom way here. Gaming, if you don't use gaming, you can turn all of this stuff off. But if you do want the optimize your PC for gaming in the background, I really don't see much of a difference, to be honest. But if you do want to get rid of it, you can do. If you're not gaming on that system, by all means, you can turn all of this stuff off. Captures and other things like that, you can turn this off. You can see, sorry, your PC doesn't meet the hardware requirements. That's because this is a virtual machine. But if there would be a radio button here, which you can just toggle off on this sort of stuff, if you wanted to turn this off. If you do use this sort of feature, then by all means, leave that feature on. Let's go to apps. Again, apps and features. This is pretty straightforward stuff. You'd go through here and remove stuff that you don't want to use on your system. You can't uninstall all of the options like Cortana and things like that. But there is areas inside here like Get Help. If you don't use that, you can sometimes uninstall them. But this one you can't. You can't even undo the maps anymore. But there is some of these ones you can get rid of here, like Microsoft News and a bunch of other stuff like OneDrive. It still allows you to uninstall this. Now, by doing it this way, you can always download it and install it if you need it again, like OneDrive and things like that. If you use a script to rip it right out, it sometimes breaks it and you can't then reinstall it, it can be a bit more problematic. So it's safer to do it this way. And again, coming down to some of the other things you can remove if you don't need these on your system. Not going to go through all of these, but you get the general idea. Let's go back and move on to default apps. Same thing really, same process. Feedback hub and things like that. If you don't need these will be removed if you toggle these off. So let me go back here to offline maps. Again, these offline maps, you can see here, meter connection, map updates, all this sort of stuff, automatically update these. And it doesn't seem to let you toggle this off anymore. But I don't think they come down unless you download maps. I think that's the way it works now. Pretty sure you can turn that off inside group policy if you have that. So optional features, again, depending on what you want to do here, if you want to turn some of these off, you can do. So for instance, if you've got, say, steps recording, you don't use it, by all means, you can uninstall it. And same thing for any other ones here, like Microsoft Quick Assist. If you don't use that, you can turn that off. A restart is needing for that option there. But you can turn uninstall these off to whatever you don't use here. And there's more Windows features here as well, which you can remove, but I would tend to leave these alone. You can see Windows Media Player here. If you wanted to uninstall those, you can do. So that is the optional features here. We've got apps and websites and also the other stuff here, but I'm not going to move these and turn these off here. Don't want Teams on. Don't need notifications and stuff like this. Startup, that's the startup section. Okay, so let's take a look at services here. Now, I'm not going to cover the whole services for this video. There's just two for telemetry. If you are one of these people that are worried about telemetry, there's a bunch of other stuff you can turn off, but tend to turn off just the telemetry ones, two of them in here, which are the main culprits. And let's just come down here. So tracking client here, this is one here. You can see it here. So we can disable this, stop. I'm going to apply this and OK. And we want to do this one here. Connected user experiences and telemetry. And you can turn this one off as well. So we can stop this, stop the service, disable, and click apply and OK. Now, of course, there is other services in here which you can turn off. Things like flat fax and things like that. If you're not using a fax, that is, but I'm not going to go through that in this video. There is some other ones in here. I've done videos on this before, so we'll just leave it as is with that. Now, like I said at the beginning, these settings are not for everyone. Some people may want to use some of these features, and by all means, leave those features enabled if that is the case. And with that said, my name has been Brian from briteccomputers.co.uk. If you enjoy this type of content, then hit the subscribe button and also give the video a thumbs up, and I shall see you again for more videos like this real soon. Just want to say a big shout out to all my YouTube members who have joined my YouTube members group. Your names are rolling up on the screen right now. Have a lovely weekend, and I shall see you again real soon for a new video. Bye for now.